Psalm chapter 37. I really like Psalm 37. I like every word that comes out of the Word of God. We're going to look at Psalm chapter 37, verse 25. A lot of us have heard this verse before, but let's dig down deep into what David wanted us to see here. Psalm chapter 37, verse 25. David said, I have been young and now am old, yet have I not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. Tonight I'm going to talk about keep living and you will get old. Keep living and you will get old. We need to think about not just our physical age, but we also need to think about our spiritual age. Some people in the Christian walk, the Christian journey, are oftentimes so used to being spiritually young and being focused on the same thing that they don't ever grow up spiritually. David was talking about not only his physical age of getting young and old, he was also talking about how his spirit watched other people develop problems, go through problems, and those who are living right never end up having to beg or having to go through anything by themselves. What I love about this text is that David made it clear that I am not in this thing by myself. He said, I am young. I was young, but now I'm old. Never have I seen the righteous forsaken. A lot of people always talk about how they pray to God and how they sit there and they go through problem after problem, situation after situation, and they sit there and they say, why am I still going through the same thing, the same issue, the same problem? But the thing is, you are young and you're not trying to get old. A lot of people say, I don't want to get old, but let me tell you something. The benefit of getting old is being wise in situations that you go through. If you stay with God as you get older in God, you have to know that God will go through it with you. God ages with you. See, God might not ever get old, but he will help you learn how to grow up in your spirit. But a lot of people don't want to get older spiritually because they don't want the responsibility of knowing that I have a responsibility to help somebody else. David said, I was young. That means I used to do some things back in my early days that were not right. And the thing is, I might not have known what I was doing, but as I got older, I realized that things that I used to do, I really don't do no more. He said, I was young, but now I'm old. I've grown up. I've dealt with problems. I've dealt with situations. You look at 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11, it says that when I was a child, I spake as a child. I acted as a child. But when I became a man, when I grew up, I put away childish things. I stopped the gossiping and the lying. When you keep living, you will get old. You get tired of dealing with the same stupid things over and over again when you get old. People don't realize why older people tend to have this mode of stubbornness, or what we call stubbornness. No, what it is they have the wisdom that we don't understand because we have not yet grown all the way up. But see, God wants us to be able to take correction. Correction is also a part of growing up. When you're able to be corrected and take that corrective criticism and use it to help you grow up, that means you're living the right way. But some people don't like corrective criticism. Keep living and you will get old. Some people don't want to grow up because that means that they have to take care of their own problems. That means they have to take care of their own situations. Some people don't want to have to grow up because that means that they have to be responsible. That means they have to do right. That means they have to teach others and help others how to do right. Some people want to stay where they are so they don't have to deal with any extra responsibility because they can't handle what they're already dealing with. But the thing that we have to know is when we are young, that's when we know that we are making mistakes. But when we get old, we have learned from our mistakes. When we get old, we can help somebody else. That's what the correction, the knowledge, and the truth comes in as we grow up. See, the Bible tells us to train up a child in the way that they should go. Oh, see, we have to learn that turning from our wicked ways helps us grow up. We have to learn that living in the shadow, living in the ways of God helps us grow up. How does it help us grow up? Because it teaches us what conviction will do for us if we let it. But what happens is we like to stay in our young state. We don't want to grow up. But let me tell you something. If you take care of yourself while you're young and you follow God while you're young and you live for God while you're young, the thing is when you get old, you will still be able to do a lot of things concerning the ministry of God. You will still be able to help other folks, not in the way that you used to, but in a better way, because you become more effective by learning from the mistakes that you made when you were young. Even though you were living for God, yeah, you fell and you stumbled, but you still got up and said, let me do better and learn from where I used to be. A lot of people don't like to learn from somebody else. A lot of people don't like to learn or be corrected or be told something different from somebody else because they think they have all the answers. Let me tell you something. When God puts knowledge in you for you to learn more, take that knowledge and keep on working with it, because knowledge turns into the wisdom that God wants you to have. Knowledge is you learning of God so that the wisdom that you are learning of God in will take you further than where you already are. A lot of us like to just sit around and be bored. We like to sit around and just do what we want to do. And what happens is we become complacent in our living. But we have to realize that when we get old, somebody is going to ask us what we did when we were younger. How did we get out of this problem when we were younger? How did I face this issue when you were younger? How did I do this and this and that? How could you live in this kind of way when you were younger? Well, I stayed with God. David said, I was young. That means I used to be young. That means I used to do certain things. That means I used to live a certain kind of way. That means I used to make mistakes. That means I used to have problems. That means I used to have tribulation. But that also means I learned from those things. A lot of people don't like the truth either. But if you're going to keep living and get old, you need to know what the truth is. If you don't know what the truth is, how are you going to know how to get old? Some people can be telling you that you have to do all of these things, and this is the truth to get you older. Some people can tell you different ways and different mechanisms to be truthful. Some people can tell you different versions of the truth, and they can tell you this is how you get old. This is what you do to get old. This is what you do, and this is how you do it. But the thing is, you end up dying trying to listen to a version of the truth. No, if it does not concern Christ and you living for God, if it does not concern you doing the work, if it does not concern you living for the kingdom, if it does not concern you living a righteous life, David didn't say anybody's life. David said it was the righteous that he never seen forsaken. It was the righteous that he never seen begging for bread. He said he watched his enemies go beneath him. He said the steps of a good man, a righteous man, are ordered by the Lord, and he delighteth in his way. That's what David said. Why? Because he grew up seeing that. He grew up seeing that his mistakes got him in trouble. He grew up seeing that while he kept living, his mistakes showed him that he needed to do something different. Because when he got old, he helped somebody else lead. We got too many people that are older that don't want to help a younger generation. But let me tell you the issue there. They don't want to help the younger younger generation because the younger generation feels like they know it all already. But the thing is, you haven't learned everything. See, so many people have theories on how to live, theories on how to do, theories on how to be. Sometimes we need to just sit down and learn from those who have already been where we're trying to go. We need to sit down and learn from folks who have already sat with God. We need to learn from folks who have already heard the voice of God and are trying to teach us how to do better. But our problem is we think we know it all. Let me tell you something, younger generation. We don't know everything. There are people that have already lived where we are trying to go. There are people that have already done what we're trying to do. There are people that have already been where we're trying to go. But the thing is, we got to learn how to trust God and listen to the righteous word. We have to learn how to live a righteous life from people who have already been living the righteous life. If we want to keep living and get old, if we want to keep living and move further, if we want to keep living and go higher, if we want to keep living and be blessed, if we want to keep living and become wise, if we want to keep living and help somebody else, we need to be helped to help somebody else. There's a song that says, if I can help somebody as I travel along. When you're traveling, that's a part of you getting old. If you are going nowhere, if you haven't been anywhere, how can you help somebody travel somewhere that you haven't been? If I can help somebody as I travel along, then my living shall not be in vain. Well, let me tell you something. This generation needs a wake-up call because we feel like we have all the answers to the problem of the world. And our problem is that we already feel like we've lived where everybody else has lived. We feel like we already know what everybody else knows. We already think we feel what everybody else is feeling. We feel like we already have what everybody else has. We feel like we can do what everybody else is doing. Let me give you a reality check. The reality to it all is this generation needs to know that when you keep living, you will get old. But see, what we have to realize is what David was saying here in Psalm chapter 37, verse 25. David was saying, I've watched people who have lived holy, but I've also watched people who haven't been living holy. David said, I was young, but now I'm old. People don't understand how I cling more to the older generation than I do the younger generation. Let me tell you why. Because the older generation can tell us about some things that we're headed for if we don't get it right. There's a phrase that tells us that those who ignore history, not those who relive history, those who ignore history are doomed to repeat it. Let me tell you something. If you keep on living and you ignore the history that the older generation is trying to keep you out of doing, if you ignore the older people trying to warn you, then you're going to relive the same evil that they went through. You're going to relive the same problems that they've been through. The thing is, if you keep living, you will get old. But the thing is, are you going to get old spiritually or are you just going to get old physically? See, when you get old spiritually, you grow stronger in the Lord. You grow stronger with God. You do things that you feel like you couldn't do before. You can lay hands on the sick and they shall recover. You can have faith not only the size of a mustard seed. Your faith can begin to grow to where you can move sections of mountains, not just one mountain. You can move sections of mountains. But the thing that we have to know is we don't know everything. We have to learn from somebody. David had to learn from somebody. David had to learn that even though I had somebody's husband killed, that I had to learn that I wasn't right for that. See, David had to realize that everything that I used to do, I can't do anymore. David said, when I spoke as a child, when I was a child, I did everything that a child does. But when I became a man, when I grew up and finally realized that everything that I did wasn't right, when I finally realized that everything that I was living for was not the correct thing to live for, I got it right. See, David was a man after God's own heart. But even David had to realize that if I keep on living, I'm going to get old. But I don't want to be old and miserable because I didn't live for God. Because when you live for somebody else, when that person is gone, you become miserable because you don't have what you're living for. But because God will never die, if you're living for God, you will always have joy. You'll always have peace. When you keep living, you will get old. But what I love about getting old is you learn more when you get old if you're willing to learn. When you get old, you know that you can help somebody who's going through something. Watch this. You will have somebody sitting under you waiting to learn from you because of who you are. Some people might not listen to my voice. Some people might not listen to other folks because of their age, because they say this is a young man talking to me. But the thing is, they'll go and listen to somebody older. Why? Because they know that that person has already been there. They know that that person has already lived that kind of life. They already know that that person has been through trials and tribulations. They already know that that person has walked the walk. They already know that that person has lived through problem and circumstance. They already know. But the thing is, if you keep on living, the thing is, you can be young and still know and have wisdom. You can be young, but the thing is, you have to be up under the right people. David said, I was young, but now. David said, that's what I love about David. David will reflect on something that he's already been through to let somebody else know. Even me, David, the king, had to sit up under somebody to learn that I have to go through some things, but somebody can teach me what I don't need to deal with. Some of us, we're too busy sitting up under folks that are taking us through the same problem because they haven't grown up yet. Some of us are sitting up under people that don't know that they're in problems and circumstances that they've been in for 20 and 30 years. Some of us don't even realize that we're sitting up under people that don't even have a life that is right because of the fact that they're still trying to live for somebody else. But let me help you just a little bit.
Yeah, now.
I'm going to be finished. Let me help you just a little bit. When you gain wisdom, that comes from you sitting up under someone who is not making the same mistake, but who has learned from their mistake and planted a seed in you to teach you how to stay out of the mistake that they've already been in. When you sit under somebody who's willing to correct you, you're sitting under somebody who doesn't want to see you in the same mess that they've already been through. When you're sitting under somebody who's trying to you're sitting under somebody who wants to see you grow further than where they already are. When you see somebody, or when you're sitting up under somebody who wants to tell you the truth, you're sitting up under somebody who wants to help you help somebody else get further than where both of you already are. You're trying to help somebody get into the kingdom. See, the thing is, we got too many Christians trying to keep people out of heaven because of the fact that they're scared that their blessings are going to be higher than theirs. But let me tell you something. All of us have to get old one day. All of us have to see Jesus one day. All of us have to see his appearing one day. I'd rather be young and get old helping somebody else get old, watching them help somebody else get old, and then be with Jesus and all of us be up there together celebrating being old. But then I don't want to be that person sitting there telling somebody, I don't want you to go to heaven because you had more than I had when we were on earth. I don't want you to be up here with me. No. But the thing is, when you keep living, either you going to accept what God is doing and you're going to get old, or you're going to be that one person that sits there miserable. Keep living. And you will. There's no choice about it. Whether it takes you 1 year, whether it takes you 1 day, or whether it takes you a lifetime to grow up and get old. Keep living.
Wow.
And you will get old.
Get old. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I thank God for his word on tonight. God, I tell you that